Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining me today. My name is Albert Cabello, and I'm a principal product manager at the core platform team on Intune. Today, we're going to talk about what actually happens behind the scenes from the time an admin makes a change on Intune to devices reflecting that change. If you watched last year's session, I want you to think about today's session as a follow-up. But if you haven't, don't worry. During the first half, we'll walk through the payload delivery journey, we'll zoom in on the device checking process, and on the second half, we'll spend a chunk of time talking about the fast lane, the improvements we've made, and what's coming soon. I will break down where time is spent, what's predictable versus variable, and how we're improving the experience end-to-end. So if you've ever wondered, why is it taking so long for a policy to get applied, this talk is for you. If you're watching this session live, feel free to drop questions on the chat. And as always, you can reach out to me directly at albert.cabello@microsoft.com. So when I look back at the Intune journey, I'd say there is three distinct architecture leaps. An initial pull phase, when Intune was originally released and it was more of a companion tool, but most payloads were still delivered through Config Manager. A push phase, when we started sending push notifications for some changes in between those pulls. To looking ahead, delivering a system that can differentiate between what's critical and urgent from what is not, and ensuring that important things never get stuck behind noise. That brings us to a core concept, which is tools like Intune are designed as an eventual consistency system. That means that changes are not reflected instantly everywhere, but rather devices converge to a desired state over time. This is by design. Think about a real scenario where you are on a plane with no connectivity, but you still can work on that important presentation or send that important email. Everything on your device just works, even though it doesn't have direct connection to the outside world. Then, sometime after you land and reconnect, Intune reconciles state seamlessly and without interruptions, as if nothing had ever happened. Eventual consistency is what allows that flexibility, but there is also a trade-off. Until a device checks in, we don't truly know its state. Are there any pending changes? Did something change locally? Is the device still secure and compliant? All that conflict resolution happens when the device checks in. That's why device check-ins are so critical, and why their timing matters. At a high level, I like to bucket check-ins into three main groups. Single device check-ins, those are a result of explicit actions taken by an admin or a single user on a single device. Client-initiated check-ins, those usually happen behind the scenes to keep devices healthy when nothing else is going on. And change-based check-ins, those are triggered by what we call the fast lane. The important thing here is that not all device activity is the same. Each of these check-in types serve a different outcome. So our goal is to make sure that important check-ins happen fast and reliably without interruptions for lower priority check-ins. So what is the fast lane? In short, when a service-side change occurs, Intune pushes notifications for devices to check in so that the change can be applied quickly. There are primarily four actions that trigger the fast lane. An admin modifying the targeting of a payload, like adding a new entra group to an existing assignment. An admin modifying the contents of a payload, such as changing a policy configuration. Any changes to entra group memberships, and updates to apps from the different apps. Now, the last two categories in particular are interesting because they can happen behind the scenes without the admin ever noticing. But from Intune's perspective, there are still real changes that trigger that fast lane. When any of those changes occur, Intune will notify affected devices. However, not every change triggers a fast lane notification. While some of that is by design, like for example, adding an app as available to a group of users, there have also been inconsistencies on what payloads and gateways were onboarded onto the fast lane. I'll address that later. To make this concrete, think of change delivery like package tracking. A change happens, and that triggers Intune to compile the list of affected devices. Next, Intune notifies those devices. During that process, we make sure that there is fairness across all changes happening on your organization and across organizations to keep the experience fair and consistent for everyone. Then, devices check in, Intune applies changes, and devices report status for admins to see. Now, most of the Intune timing delays occur on handoffs between Intune sending notifications and devices checking in. And that's the part of the system we're focused the most. With that context in mind, we're going to do a deep dive into 5 specific investments. These are improvements that we've either released recently or that we're putting the finishing touches for you to see really soon. That also means perhaps today I might not talk about some specific scenario you're feeling pain with or some investment that is further down on the horizon. I want to focus today's conversation on your experience today and the point in time where we are on that journey to make Intune a more intelligent system. Also, I often get asked, what is it that I need to do in order to take advantage of these improvements? If there is some knob that I need to turn, and the answer is no. The way we're building all these smarts is directly at the core of our system. So they apply to the widest range of the scenarios without you having to change how you work or add any friction. So we've talked about most of the latency occurring from the moment a change happens to devices getting notified to those devices checking in and applying changes. What we've learned is that 40% of notifications we were sending did not result in any remediations. And similarly, 65% of all MDM check-ins did also not result on any device changes. In other words, the system was accelerating check-ins for devices that were not pressed for urgency, while potentially devices with more important pending changes were getting stuck behind. So the goal here is to aim as close as possible without notifications to the actual bullseye that represents the devices that have pending changes, so we can get more changes fast-tracked and with that reducing timing for everyone. In the last year alone, we've optimized every single aspect of our notification system to reduce unnecessary notifications by up to 35%, and we've optimized our device check-in stack to process 40% more sessions across the board. So what does all that mean to you? It means upwards of 97% of all notification-based check-ins are getting processed on first attempt today. Now, while at the scale Intune operates, that's a big improvement. If your water heater was working 97% of the time, you wouldn't brag about the hot showers. You'd never forget that one cold shower you had once. So the next set of investments is what moves us from 97 to 98 to 99 to 99.9, so that you don't experience any cold showers no more. The following investment is about who gets served first when there is lots going on. Now, while this investment primarily targets Windows devices, because Windows is the largest platform we manage by the number of devices, optimizing Windows traffic frees up capacity for all platforms to use, and with that, faster remediation timings overall. You heard me saying last year that our traffic patterns are very consistent. Every morning, when people show up at work, we experience a peak in traffic from all those users signing in and their devices trying to check in. Now, think about those variable speed limits on freeways. Intune works similarly. The key thing here is, as long as things are running smoothly, we do not artificially slow down any check-ins, period. All traffic is prioritized equally until the device or organization limits are hit. Now, when those limits are hit, a portion of those check-ins might be deprioritized. Today, in the check-in prioritization algorithm, the only distinction we've made was between maintenance and non-maintenance check-ins. The distinction being, maintenance check-ins are check-ins that happen behind the scenes, while non-maintenance check-ins usually happen as a result of some action. But crucially, not all maintenance check-ins are equally important. A device action like a remote wipe, a user signing in on their device for the first time in the morning, or a user getting an app from the company portal, all competed equally with a device falling out of compliance because a virus had been found, a new device getting added to Intune from a new user, or an admin pushing a fix for a crashing app to a subset of users. All those check-ins were treated equally. So what we've done is we've introduced a new category to the prioritization algorithm for devices with pending changes. The principle that we do not artificially slow down any check-ins still applies. What has changed is, when device or organization limits are hit, we will make room for devices with pending changes, and those devices will jump to the front of the line. This represents a shift from client signal-only check-in prioritization to intelligent service-driven prioritization, and effectively means we'll never leave behind devices that need a check-in, even during peak times. But we're not stopping there. Next, we're turning our prioritization algorithm upside down. We're moving past the rigid maintenance, non-maintenance grouping that we had to a model with explicit priority tiers, each of them with their own SLOs based on the impact a delayed check-in would have on the user productivity or the security and compliance posture of that device. With these changes, we can enforce urgency when it matters without sacrificing fairness. And by combining signals with service intelligence, we can now have fine-grained prioritization for new scenarios. In summary, what has changed architecturally is Intune is now keeping track of devices with pending changes. When a device checks in, the gateway factors in a variety of signals to automatically adjust the priority of the check-in from the perspective of the impact a potential delay could have, while also adjusting quotas and timings dynamically according to the demand to make the system more efficiently all the time. Our goal with these changes is for all critical check-ins to almost never retry and high priority check-ins to complete within 1 hour. Now that we have addressed how we determine who gets served first, let's talk about how often we notify. In the old model, Intune would send one fast notification per device during a 30-minute period. If there were more changes flowing through the system during that 30-minute period, notifications would not be attempted or queued, but simply dropped. So whatever was missed would need to wait for whenever the device check-in next, which could well be a maintenance check-in hours after. Now, what we've observed is that up to 30% of notifications in a 30-minute period would target the same group of devices. In fact, 90% of multiple changes would occur within a 15-minute window. And crucially, most of the times, one well-timed notification would be enough to remediate all pending payloads. But the system did not have the smarts to handle this multiple changes scenario, leading to an inconsistent behavior and delayed remediation for back-to-back changes. The new notifications model introduces per-device notification timers. In practice, how it works is deceptively simple. Imagine two devices, device 1 and device 2. When an admin makes a first change these two devices, instead of sending a notification right away, we'll start a timer. If no more changes happen in the next couple of minutes, we'll send a notification for the device to check in. However, if additional changes happen to any of those devices, we'll hold that notification just a little bit longer to let the admin complete those changes in 2-minute increments per change up to 10 minutes total. After we notify devices, if there are more changes, we'll always queue another notification in. Then opportunistically, as traffic allows, we'll release those notifications sooner. This gives you no drop notifications. Every change you make will result in a push notification for devices to check in. Time-bound delivery expectations with minimal changes to single changes scenarios. Better handling of back-to-back changes. All that without impacting small changes and single device actions. Those are never queued. They always jump the line. And most importantly, the fast lane and all the improvements we just discussed is expanding to support additional payloads and gateways. Payloads delivered through the Intune Management Extensions like scripts, classic apps, custom compliance on both Windows and Mac platforms, as well as payloads on the MMPC gateway. Basically, any change will result in a push notification for devices to check in. Now, the fast lane has little impact if notifications don't get reliably to devices. This is roughly how the fast lane looks like from a high-level architecture. The important thing here is that we rely on services for platform providers for the last mile of delivering notifications for devices. WNS for Windows, APNS for Apple, and FCM for Google devices. In general, delivery of these notifications by the platform providers is best effort and not warranted, and it can be affected by delays, failures, or devices being offline. I often get asked why Intune doesn't provide additional visibility on notifications delivery, and the truth is, it is as much of a black box to you as it is to us, unfortunately. So, while investments like check-in prioritization help with upgrading the priority of check-ins if they have pending changes, every missed notification can result in hours of delays. So, focusing again on Windows, since this represents the largest platform that we manage by volume, the investment here is complementing the built-in native Windows notification system with IC3, the communications protocol used by Teams, via the Intune Management Extension. By having the Intune Management Extension being the brains of the operation, Intune will have more control over the end-to-end notifications delivery, and will also be able to reason through all the different pending changes or actions on a device across different gateways, prioritizing what's important first. More importantly, we've also improved the reliability and diagnosability, including delivery receipts, while unlocking new possibilities in the future like online and end-user presence, all contributing to targeting notifications more efficiently. These improvements are coming first to remote help, and soon to other device actions, the fast lane, and even MDM payloads. All you need to do is ensuring your network and firewall rule configuration is up to date with the required network endpoints. All the investments we've talked so far were about the fast lane, but when there are no service-side changes pending, we still want devices to check in as needed to ensure devices are healthy. This is an investment specifically for iOS devices. As opposed to Windows devices that have this notion of client-initiated scheduled check-ins as a failsafe, iOS does not have this native capability, but rather, we've implemented an equivalent scheduled task from the service side. So in short, 3 maintenance check-ins daily for iOS devices, roughly every 8 hours. Those maintenance check-ins being service initiated means that they are competing for notifications and check-ins with the rest of check-ins. During peak times, we've observed these iOS maintenance check-ins accounting for up to 40% of the overall traffic that we get. Now remember, most of the maintenance check-ins do not result in device changes. So this is another case where a more intelligent system can manage resource better and accelerate what matters the most. So the new design. During off-peak hours, we'll continue requesting 2 maintenance check-ins per device. During peak hours, if we did not hear back from those devices, we will still request again a maintenance check-in. Otherwise, we'll hold on that maintenance check-in as needed to make room for other, more important check-ins. With this change, 99.5% of changes to iOS devices are actually delivered faster, while reducing by 10% the number of delayed check-ins across all platforms. This is another good example of a platform-specific investment that generates a positive ripple effect across all platforms. So the chat today was about how we're improving timing for payload delivery and focus on the investments that are either recently released or released soon. But this is not everything we're working on. We hear you, and we're optimizing for other scenarios as well. While those are not the focus of today's talk, we want you to know that there are other areas that we care, and we can't wait to share more details soon. In closing, the key takeaways from today's session are: we're evolving Intune onto an intelligent, priority-aware system. This is not about everything being instant, but rather making sure that the important things happen first without interaction from less important things. We covered specific investments that we have either released recently or will be released soon. Specifically, the fast lane will be coming for all gateways and for all payloads to provide a consistent experience throughout. And a number of scenarios will now have higher priority and will avoid delays. With that, I want to thank you for your time, wish you a fantastic day, and hope to talk back to you soon.